What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Lost Sword video. Today I want to just do a new player guide that focuses on basics of team building as well as progression and which characters to focus on and all that good stuff so that you can hit the end game as fast as possible. Now, I'm not going to talk about specific banners on a week-by-week basis because I don't know when whoever's watching this is going to be tuning in. However, if you are lucky enough to be catching this right now and you are a newer player, keep in mind Galahad was just announced to be returning once again, and she is arguably one of the best characters in the game. Actually, not arguably, she is one of the best characters in the game, maybe the top character in the game, I should say. So if you are, just starting now, you could save for her. We're also getting a new character, Belzy, but that'll be for a separate video. So in this video, let's just talk about the basics of team building, walls you might get stuck at, as well as, just tips and tricks to really elevate and progress your gameplay. So thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go straight into it. Alrighty, guys, first things first, let's talk about team building, team formations. And I'm going to try to give you guys some tips how to create a team just for general purpose. And then as you guys get more experience and learn, you'll be able to kind of fine tune things for yourself, and especially for different modes. But hopefully this will help you guys just build a good foundation to get you started, at least so you know what to bring to the table. Let's start with the front, middle, and back rows, and starting from right to left, let's go with the knight, the tank row. Okay, I say knights because at least so far in the game, you kind of need a knight in the front row. There's a few exceptions we might talk about later, like gold dungeon cheesing, but for now we'll keep it basic. And in the front row, guys, you want to have a knight. So I'm going to show you guys a few examples here of some knights that you might see around. We have Galahad and Lancelot, two of the best just units in the game at the moment. I talked about Galahad at the start. If you are looking enough to get her, this unit by herself, Galahad, can solo tank for some of the content, actually most of the content, but sometimes you will need a secondary knight to help absorb the damage. So that's where, before I talk about the rest of the characters and team comps, I want to talk about real quick about positioning and target priority. So the way targeting works and things like that in this game is positioning does matter slightly. In that the top row unit here, Galahad, will get attacked first, and then Lancelot. And then if I just throw in some other units here, Isolde will be attacked next, and then behind her will be Vivian. And so it's kind of just whoever's slightly leaning a little bit forward will actually get hit first if it's just like melee. Sometimes there's, enemy mobs that hit multiple units, in which case it doesn't matter as much. Sometimes there's mobs that hit the back line units, but just keep in mind, like the one that's kind of facing forward a little bit. If we talk about position one for Galahad, position 2 for Lancelot, position 3 for Isolde, and so forth, 1 and 3 get hit first, and that means 5 will get hit first here in the back row. So Neo Bedivere will get hit before Eva here, if I throw Eva in that 6th row spot, right? Okay, so that's kind of just the basics in terms of positioning. A lot of times that doesn't matter too much, but in the knight row position especially, you want to make sure the unit that is either countering or that's going to be, able to be tankier should be in that top row spot. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you will need 2 knights. But in the beginning, guys, if you don't have Galahad, if you don't have Lancelot, if you don't have, one of the top tier knights, just throw in anyone. You can have access to Kay, you can have access to Gawain, Percival, Elizabeth, anyone that can kind of get you through the beginning until you get more summons, because the game will flood you with free currency, free summons. Check your mail, get the coupons, and get all that stuff to get started. You will have all these characters eventually. Even if you're not whaling out, the game does give you so many summons, and you have selectors as well on a case by case. It'll happen either through the mail, or you can get them to mileage or the gold crystals and things like that. But just have a knight, and that's going to be our basics. Galahad, of course, is very good because she buffs rangers and mages as well, but in general, just have someone in the front row, sometimes 2 units in the front row tanking. Okay, guys, and just real quick, I didn't even cover this real fast. The positioning, all that does is going to give you some extra stats, and that'll depend on the character, attack, defense, HP, something like that. Try to have, you see here in the top right here, it says what position they want to be in. So if I bring in Lohengrin, she wants to be in the back row. Essentially try to keep them in that position. However, for support units like Aaron, a lot of times that little extra boost doesn't really matter. So you could actually just have her tanking in the front if you build her extra tanky, but that might be a more advanced late game technique. In the beginning, try to keep it basics. Knight should be in the front, and then Squishy should be in the back. However, there's a lot of midline units like Deanne is a healer support that wants to be in the midline. Same thing with like Merlin, who is a caster support. Try to keep them where they want to be respectively, but sometimes you will have to force them in positions they don't want to, and that's all right. It's just you do lose a little bit of stats. So we have our knight, and then typically we're going to want to bring some healers and some damage after that. So we have our tank. Let's go ahead and just talk about the healers next, right? There are supports. So supports are extremely important in this game. I'm going to jump and talk about gearing for them just specifically because there's some things that aren't very intuitive. But I talk about DN, you have units like Rhea, these are all supports, guys. I showed Aaron earlier, who's not a direct healer, but she does provide a lot of barriers. So she is a support, almost like a healer in herself. But typically, if you just want a direct healer, you have units like Isolde. The game gives you Guinevere at the start for free, who is very, very strong if I can find her. So you have a lot of options. Just bring a healer, and then of course refer to the tier list if you want to know who's actually better in the current current meta. But as long as you have a healer present, as long as a knight, a healer, you are off to a good start, right? You have a cohesive comp that will carry you through until you get more summons, more resources, more currency. So we talked about healers, we talked about knights, and real fast, in terms of healers, guys, one very important thing, you may not have access to gear in the very start that looks like this, but just keep an eye out, because in terms of healing, one very important aspect of the game is this added target, and this is not very intuitive, like I said earlier. So healers, they scale off attack, and if you can get more attack targets for them, even though they're not attacking the enemies, they will be healing multiple of your teammates, of your own units. So the more added targets you have, things like this goddess staff, I believe like the dragon staff that you can get very early on has double target 2. So try to rush added target 2 for your healers, and you will see that your survivability goes up a ton, because they start healing an extra unit at the same time while they're autoing. So just keep that in mind. That is one little tip for healers that will make a huge difference. So we have, let's just keep 2 healers in, guys. We have a knight, 2 healers. Now we want to bring out our damage. Obviously, units like Tiamat are going to be insane, and if we have units like Galahad, we want to keep that synergy in mind. That's kind of where the information or the the game knowledge is going to come to effect. But in general, if you don't even have Galahad, if you have a different knight here, Tiamat is still good. Any type of ranger, damage, mages, things like that. Even though Hangren has a knight in the back row, as long as you have one of the better damage dealers in the game, he'll be good to go. So we have something like this, and then we can add in like a Merlin, kind of as a pseudo hybrid DPS support that buffs, but also crowd controls and provides a little bit of damage too. You could also just go for double damage dealers here, another ranger, or in terms of supports, we have additional units like, let's talk about, who do we have here, guys, that maybe someone like this who has a lot of crit chance. Isabel has a lot of utility, does some decent damage, but will provide like crit damage, or sorry, crit reduction, I believe, for your team. So extra support too. So in general, just try to have, once again, a frontliner. Keep in mind positioning. Sometimes you might need 2 knights. Have multiple healers at the start, guys. That's going to be a big thing. A lot of people don't bring enough sustain, either not enough sustain or not enough healers. And if you do find you're steamrolling the content, then hey, you can drop your healers, you can drop one knight and just bring more damage. But this is where I want to kind of hammer home that there's not always a one-size-fit-all comp, until you're really, really late in the game. And even then, I still slot in a few characters in and out. But in the beginning, just try to have a cohesive of a well-rounded party. You have your tank, you have your healers, and you have your damage. And if you find you're dying too quick, add more healers, add a second knight. If you find you're steamrolling, or let's say you're running out of damage, then add, drop a knight, add more damage, add another ranger, another mage. That's kind of going to be the basis. So one last thing, guys, and that is you should refer to either Private or my tier list and try to find out what characters are a little bit better off. I really encourage you to kind of experiment and play how you want. But if you're free to play, there are things like character skill books that are a little bit more rare. So if I show you guys the skill ups here, unfortunately, I have them all maxed, but you guys can see here these skill pages. These are going to be a bottleneck, especially early. So try not to throw them into just random characters to experiment with, because this you cannot reset. Unfortunately, you can reset the levels, but not the skill pages. So that one major tip is don't, over-invest in characters unless you're sure you're going to be using them for a long time. So let's say, for example, you don't have Galahad yet, and you're using maybe a lower tier tank like Percival. Give her some good gear, give her some levels, but don't maybe full invest in her skill sets just yet, because you might find a knight that's going to replace her, and then you want those skill pages somewhere else. But let's wrap up team compositions here, and let's talk about pets next. One super quick disclaimer, guys, before I move on. I talked about units like Galahad that buff your rangers and mages. There are a lot of synergies. You'll just have to read through the character skills kits, because I won't have time to go through every single character out here. But you have units like Diane as well that are better with units like knights. Otherwise, you want to use a more generic healer like Guinevere that I showed you earlier, or Isolde. You have units like Rhea that give attack up, crit damage. So make sure you're bringing units that scale off attack and not HP scaling units like Lancelot. Just try to keep those synergies in mind and what you have access to and what you bring to the table. But as long as you got your team composition, like I said, between the roles is kind of balanced, then even those little synergies, even if I'm not bringing a knight, a damaged knight with Yan, she still brings a lot of support. And if that's my only healer and I want to invest in her for later, it's still going to be just fine. So don't worry about that too much. Just be careful about over investing in the skill pages like I talked about. So for the pets, guys, let's just talk about generic pets and things like that real quick. A lot of times you're not going to have access to the best pets in the game. Just use whatever you have. Once again, I have, actually, I don't know if I have a pet tier list. Maybe we need to make that next. But, there's going to be certain standout pets that you guys might hear about, read about. Front row units like Phoenix. Let's talk about that first, guys. The pets are a little confusing in this game until you get the hang of it. Pets the main skill will only activate for the front row. So whatever's in the front row, that's all you have to worry about. The rest of the units in the pets in the second and third row, they're just for stat sticks, okay? So Phoenix's favor here is very strong because it gives crit chances, just an example. And while it's in the front row position, it will give us the crit as well as the stat buffs as well. Now, if I were to throw in some other, pets here in the second and third row, the Lohengrin and the Eva pet, their skills, right? Lohengrin very strong as well for the attack speed. This will not activate. Only the Phoenix pet will activate. So just keep that in mind. Make sure whatever's in the front row is your strongest pet in terms of the activatable skill. Some of them are stronger than others, but just in general, guys, you can check out, like Pridewind's pet tier list until I make one myself. But you have certain different pets. Just look through the ones you have access to and make sure the stat buffs are good as well as the main buff. So for things like progression, right, guys? There are crowd control pets like Asteria, like the Tristan pet, like the Merlin pet, like the Anessa pet that will freeze or stun or root your opponents, fear your opponents, and that's very strong. That's really, really good for progression. And one nice thing is too, Asteria gives a lot of great buffs. Same thing with like the Tristan pet. Things like that in the front row are very strong, but really just throw whatever you have, even if something like the Phoenix or the Griffin, until you really figure it out. Just have an effect that is at least useful. Try to find one that is cohesive, and whatever looks good to you, honestly, it'll be fine until you figure things out a little bit. Just keep in mind you want to have this activatable or their main skill. Just make sure the best one is in the front row spot. You refer to a pet guide and I'll have one for y'all later in terms of that too. So about the front row position, let's just throw in a generic one like the Lohengrin. I showed y'all this gives attack speed. And then if we just want to throw in 2 more units in the second and third row position, just use whatever you have and try to keep it, in general, guys, there's going to be way more attack scaling units that want crit chance, crit damage, additional damage. So units like the Tiamat, just, for this stat buff line, we have a lot of attack, a lot of additional damage, a lot of crit damage, and same thing you can see here on the Eva, right? You have things like crit damage, attack, and crit chance. Very, very strong, just stat sticks. So in the second row and the third row, just throw in whatever you have in terms of damage. Typically, a lot of y'all won't be doing some specific pet guides or, comps, like for Lancelot stacking HP. So in the most part in the beginning, just go for as much damage offense in terms of the second row and second and third row spots. And in the main row spot, just have your main effect. Whichever one you have access to, you will just be summoning a lot of pets, and whatever has, good buffs, good stats will be fine. Like this Christina pet is also a very strong one too. If you look at the skill effect, it'll do some damage, and sometimes you'll have to read on this and look up a tier list if it's good or not. But most part, if it looks good to you and the pet is something that is, stat line adjacent to what you are trying to get out of the game, attack, crit chance, crit damage, you'll be good to go. So just throw in whatever you have, whatever the game gets you in summons, and then later on you can pull on specific banners or use your pet selectors to get a specific lineup that you want for yourself. Last thing I want to talk about in terms of just tips and tricks, this is the element advantage wheel, and familiarize yourself with this, because when you're progressing, when you're just going through the game, you use that kind of team competitions I told you all about in terms of, creating a good team. You have your pet set up. Sometimes your character will die out of nowhere, and that might be because the enemy mobs you're facing are, advantageous element against your knights especially. So if you're running someone like the Galahad I was talking about, right? If your Galahad is your tank in the front, she is a Radiance unit, and there's a lot of stages that are nature. The slimes, the orcs, the goblins, a lot of those will be very tough for Galahad to solo tank. So you might need to give her some special equipment, which I'll talk about here in just a second, to kind of bypass that. Or you might need to add a second knight, maybe swap the positioning, do things like that to try to bypass these walls, because you're going to hit these walls in progression, and you need to just kind of min-max and move things around, adjust gear, adjust team compositions to try to pass those hurdles. And a lot of times it is just waiting for more levels, more gear, but sometimes you could be pushing your progression by just, swapping elements, swapping characters, or even swapping, supports, gear. Like I said, cards. We'll cover all that in just a little bit, but just to familiarize yourself with the elements advantage wheel, nature beats radiance, chaos beats shock, shock beats frost and fire. And then you have holy in the middle. So units like Merlin, units like Tiamat, these guys are going to be kind of like standalone, where they never have to worry about any of the elemental advantage or disadvantageous positioning. So just familiarize yourself with this. A lot of times it will be a lot of the top 2 units in the game are Radiance, so watch out for those nature stages. Next up, guys, let's just talk briefly about equipment and gearing. I talked about healers in terms of trying to get added target for extra healing targets, and gearing is going to be something that you'll figure out a lot later, because in the beginning, the game just gives you a bunch of just random crap that really you don't want to invest too much into. So don't invest, guys, your skill pages or your weapon skill upgrades. Let me just show y'all real quick here. if we want to upgrade this, for example, you have to use these weapon scrolls, okay? In the beginning, you're not going to have a lot of these, just like the skill pages. So once again, just like not over investing in skills, try not to over invest into this until you get some legendary gear. And I'm going to give you guys a tip on, the first legendary gear to try to like rush and roll. But until later, until you start getting into the good gear sets, whatever you have, don't over upgrade your weapons, especially like blue quality, green quality, purple quality even. Don't over invest into those until you're way later in the game. A lot of times gearing is not going to hold you back from early progression. But in general, in terms of just gearing, try to just have, once again, cohesive stats for your units. So Galahad here is our front liner. We want to give her our tankiest setup. Later on, you'll have utility stuff. So let's say Galahad's not a damaging knight, unlike someone like a Nessa or Ran. So we want to give her, something that has utility, like this one that has Blizzard Storm. You'll have an early, like, what do you call it? It's like a harpoon that does like a tidal wave that like slows your opponents, or slows your opponent's attack speeds. Anything like that will be good for utility knights, and then just stack as much defense, HP, block chance and things like that on your character. That'll get you through a lot. You want to make sure your knight is extremely tanky. And let's just go ahead and go one by one at the cards. If you have someone like Lancelot and her own card, Knight of Purity, or sorry, I said Lancelot, I meant Galahad. This is very tanky, but you also have something like this that is free. You will get this card for free, the Holy Source Blessing, or it's in the shop. You buy it for free in the shop. This gives a bunch of HP, but as well as gives you kind of like a cheat death, sort of like second life immortality. So when, let's say your Galahad is getting nuked down by those, those leaf element mobs, this will kind of save you and hopefully give you enough time for your healers to catch up or get those skill cooldowns where Galahad is popping your invincibility. You have your casters, popping their heals, and then you can kind of progress through the stage. So take note of cards like this, guys. A lot of time is just wanting to survive and keep healthy until you can kind of get your skills going, your activatables as well, not just your ultimates. Like Galahad is damage reduction, and those will really help you bypass those spikes in damage in the early parts of the wave. Now, I talked about the supports and trying to go for, items that have a lot of added target too for your healers. Make sure your healers also, guys, have a lot of attack. That's going to be their main way, attack or attack speed, but attack speed is going to be very rare to come by. So just give your healers a lot of attack. And then last thing I want to show y'all, you will get access later on. In the very beginning, you won't see this, but you will have unique stats that have like healing chance, and that'll be very good for your healers as well. So stack a lot of attack. If you can get attack speed through cards, like things like the K card, let me see if I can find it, that give attack speed. Through the overdrive, the effect, things like, let's see, the Christina card. So we have the Rose Flame, which gives attack speed 10%, magic attack, right? For you, like I said, attack is going to be the main way to stack your healing. And then just any added bonuses as supports don't really need damage for themselves will be very good as well. So for supports, attack speed, don't worry about crit chance, crit damage, but if the effect gives crit chance to your teammates, that is very good too, okay? So those are your healers. Last but not least, guys, let's talk about damage. For equipment, same thing. You do want to have like, weapons that have more targets. Same thing for your melee units as well. But for healers especially, it's very important. For this, it's good too, to clear mobs faster. But a lot of times you're going to be fighting a boss. So if you don't have like a lot of added target, it's not the end of the world unless you're fighting a stage that has just a ton of waves of enemies, which there are a few of those like that. But in general, guys, for damage dealers, same thing, attack, crit damage for your units here. You want to just give them as much attack, crit damage as possible. So try to find, weapons that have a lot of attack percent, a lot of crit damage percent. That's going to be better than your flat stats. Any type of chest piece, like I said, with healing on that healer slot, you're going to find later, guys, you'll have items that give attack percent. You'll see here the red ribbon robe gives magic attack. So make sure it's a mage and not like a knight, a melee user. You have, once again, accessories that give crit chance. And then you even have refining, which I'll talk about here since we went through knights, healers, and now mages. You have your accessories, give attack, crit damage. So for damage dealers, right, makes sense. And then I want to talk about refining real quick. So let's just pick a random one of these. If I show you all refining, this is going to be something also you get later on, but just make sure, because I actually didn't even know this because I played the game in Korea before they added this feature. So when I started on global, I actually missed out on this for quite a while in progression. I was losing out on a lot of stats. So if you can see here, guys, you can add crit damage 30% on the accessory. If you're here, we can add HP. So for our knights, our front row units, we want to focus that. And then for our weapon slot, you also get attack 30% as well. So just take note, guys, it's going to be like this material that you'll get later on called refining stones, or refining and superior refining stones. And those you will use to get your weapons kind of maxed out. So use these on your better weapons, things like that. And last but not least, I talked about, you know, it's a trick since we were talking about gearing, guys, but hopefully I can just show you all here in the crafting section. This is something you can get very, very early on in the game, because some of the gear I'm showing y'all you won't see for a very long while until you get higher in the progression. However, the dragon set is going to be something, this is going to be a tip that a lot of y'all can rush depending on what you have access to. Keep note, I think in the very beginning of the game they gave you like legendary stones you could have gotten from the shop. However, you might not have access to these as early anymore, but try to check if you have some legendary cubes. You can start rushing these things like the dragon buster. Just look at this crafting section. A lot of people miss this out, and always check the event tabs and things like that. I'll show you guys here. You go to the exchange shop and you look at the current event shop, and there used to be legendary cubes at the start of the game. Unfortunately, when you start right now, you'll get awesome stuff like a ton of summons and things like that, but you won't have those legendary cubes. So unfortunately, this tip I was going to tell y'all in terms of crafting an early dragon set may not be as applicable anymore, but do take note of this, guys. Once you start getting some legendary cubes, if y'all can just start rushing weapons like the dragon buster. Let's say you start getting legendary drops, but you haven't gotten a good like staff yet, go ahead and craft one here for your mage. You can craft a sword for your melee, but a lot of things for the healers. Like I said, this is your first access to things like target 2 to start getting, you know, some early progression and big boost in stats. But it's unfortunate that you don't have these legendary cube events anymore, so you will just have to wait a little bit later until you start seeing legendary drops. All right, next up, let's talk about just all the different modes and what to do on a daily, weekly basis so you're not overwhelmed. I won't go full in depth on all of this, as this is kind of just, you know, a brief guide, but I do want to give you all the basics. So first off, let's talk about boss raid. This is something you'll do on the daily, and I have a guide talking about, you know, more advanced techniques, advanced team comps if you want to push the damage for the meters. But in general, just use the guides, the tips I told you all about in terms of a cohesive comp. Try to take advantage of the element. Unfortunately, right here is Tiamat, so the holy element doesn't matter what we bring. But a lot of times, if you bring, you know, opposite elements or advantageous elements, you'll get more numbers. If you're using, you know, characters that are not as invested, even if they're better in the element department, if you have more skill upgrades, more gear, or more training for a certain character, they might even do better, even if they don't have the right element. Just keep that in mind. All else equal, though, element, of course, does add a lot more damage. This is something you can do on the regular. Just do this once a day. It helps you out. You also get weekly stuff. You get great rewards. You have chances to get legendary gear. So make sure you're always doing your boss raid. It's part of your dailies too, in terms of the daily quests. Coliseum is up next. This is kind of the quote-unquote PvP mode. You'll fight AI team comps that people put on their defense. You can find a lot of times you'll find players that put in just one unit, you know, easy wins. Once again, if you have a cohesive comp that I talked about, you'll be able to do really well. There are some nuanced techniques on certain units like Lancelot, certain units like Claire, you know, units that have immortality like Kay. There are some PvP tricks you could use, Guinevere for rezzing, but in general, just use what you have for progressing. And a lot of times you'll be able to find comps that you can beat. Remember, refresh is free too. So just look for easy team comps and try to get this done, guys. It's for the dailies. Amazing rewards here too. A lot of times you'll get a ton of currency, not just the arena currency, but you also get achievements done that I believe will give like a lot of crystals too for the first time for ranking up. So don't get lazy. Make sure you do this. Even if you hate, you know, the PvP aspect, it's very important to get a lot of resources. Next up, you have the Labyrinth. This is already done, so I can't show you, but it's a once a week event, and it will be involving, you know, upgrading your town, which we'll talk about right after this. So make sure you do your Labyrinths once a week as well. Crack in the Roll tree is actually Tower of Oberon. Let's talk about these three together. Tower of Oberon leads into the Crack in the Roll tree, which leads into Abyss. Don't worry about too much the nitty gritty. You'll start in Tower of Oberon, and it's kind of like a challenge mode. Where you fight a bunch of bosses and get some really nice loot. But don't worry if you get stuck. Just try to, you know, jump in whenever you can. See the level differences, and every now and then as you're progressing, try to go and see what you can get done in there, because you could get some milestone achievements that give you summons, give you great gear, just currency, items like that. So try to check this out whenever you can, and then once you finish this, you'll unlock the World Tree, and then once you finish World Tree, you'll unlock the Abyss. Last but not least, we have the Star Reincarnation. This mode is a every other week kind of event where you fight Tiamat and some other bosses, and long story short, it's kind of like the boss raid, but a much more rare scenario that actually gives you permanent stat boost to your count. So make sure you do this as well whenever you can. All right, guys, zoom in right along. We have Stonehenge. Now, this one we have to talk about a little bit more in depth. There's a lot of different areas, and this is one of the most important. Like, just familiarize yourself with the zone. Once again, I can't go full in depth with this, but in the beginning, just, you know, explore it, try it out for a little bit. However, later on, there's going to be certain techniques you guys can do. I believe like Stonehenge 3 farming, just to get yourself a bunch of upgrades and stats, you know, in terms of crafting cubes. And if you don't know what I'm saying, don't worry about it. You'll see it in the game yourself. But just understand that this drops a lot of loot, a lot of resources, and you can kind of do this once a day. You get like 10 minutes, then you have like things that can accelerate that or give you more time. But in short, just try to look up a guide. where I think on Pride Win as well has you like farming Stonehenge 3. There are certain breakpoints, like I believe, I'll give you all some quick baselines, guys. In the beginning, you want to just stockpile all your resources. Do this once a day, do one boss raid, and just do, you know, some farming. You could, you know, min max, but in general, try to save a lot of your on-use items, like the compasses that give you more time, so you can, you know, do like 8 hours of farming Stonehenge level 3 to just get a ton of drops, and that'll get you guys those crafting cubes that give your account permanent stats, which we'll talk about later as well. There's so much we got to talk about. But in terms of breakpoints, Stonehenge 3, I believe, is a good one just to farm in general. And then, and you don't want to be farming like a lot of bosses until you hit around Stonehenge level, I think it's level 9 is where you want to try to get to. Now, if you see some legendaries you like here, I think 8, actually, you know what, Stonehenge 8, I believe is Stonehenge 8. When you start getting this healing goddess statue that has like the healing bonus, like I talked about earlier, I think this is a good one. Once you reach this point, you can start farming the bosses. But until then, save your compasses for Stonehenge 3 farming, and then save your boss tickets in the Stonehenge for Stonehenge level 8. And I know this is overwhelming, it's a lot of information, but I promise you'll remember what I said here, and it'll make sense once you start, you know, figuring out the game a little bit more. There's just so many moving parts, so many like different currencies and like mission, boss raid tickets, things like that. But I promise you'll get the hang of it, and you'll remember what I'm saying here. Next up, guys, we have the gold stage, and this is, of course, like in a lot of other gacha games where you farm a lot of your gold. You'll get 3 entry tickets a day, and as well as a bunch of these gold tickets, and I'll show you that in the shop later for free. You can buy extra gold tickets and things like that. But make sure you're always pushing your progression here as far as possible, and then you hit the sweeps and daily entries, okay? That's because the higher stage you progress, you'll get more by using your sweep tickets. So try to get as far as you can in the day, and then use your sweep tickets at the end. Same thing, and this is even more important for Book of Experience, guys. In Lost Sword and a lot of these style of idle games, levels are king, and this is one of the most important areas to get your levels. Obviously, you know, it's the experience zone. So once again, try to push as far as you can, and then at the end of the day, at the end of your play session, then you can start using your sweep tickets and your daily entries. But if you can start getting, you know, the first time clears, and then the farther you get, you'll get a little bit more of a bonus. So if you want to min-max, that's a great way to get extra stuff, you know, more mileage. Last but not least, guys, we have the element stones, and this is for training, which I think we'll have time to cover. Very basics. This is more of an end game kind of scenario, so we'll just keep it brief. But this is for your training materials. Essentially, it's like a awakening system for your characters. You get extra stats, and some of these stats are universal across your account. So not trying to overwhelm y'all. I will show y'all what that means, but that's what this is for, just in case you see this and you have no clue what it's about. Chugging right along, we have the party dungeon. This is something that's kind of fun. You can queue up with other players. It's super simple, very easy. Don't even think about it. Just throw in a unit. You'll kill a boss with some other players. Sometimes if there's not anyone queuing, you'll fight with some NPCs, and then you get some other currency. Do this once a day. You have extra tickets too that you will buy through the exchange shop and things like that. The guild, this is Avalon. So try to join the guild, guys. I do have spots in mind if you want to join me on NA. Look for Lost Car, but in general, this is the guild mode. You want to try to help your guild out and attack these castles. Just figure out which guild where, you know, it'll show where your guild is attacking. So you guys can see here, my guild is attacked 61 times. So try to find out where your guild is attacking and just help out there. But in general, just join a guild, because that's going to help you and give you a lot more currency and resources, just like in every other game. But this is, I believe, a every other week scenario, just like those other events that I talked about. And last but not least, this one's very important. I kind of showed the exchange shop earlier, but there's always an event going on, and you want to be doing these and try to push as far as possible. In the beginning, as a new player, you may not be able to clear till the end, but try to get as fast or as far as possible to get these whatever event currency they come up with as this rotates. Try to get this, because these shops are very, very nice and very important. And the rest of these events, guys, these are kind of just one and done things. Just check them out. They give a lot of good leveling experience. They give a lot of resources. Just do them when you can, if your level allows. And I talked earlier about the trident weapon for your knight. You actually get that in one of these stages too. So check them out when you can. Don't miss out on the events. Let's talk about the exchange shop real quick, because I kept referencing this. So on the daily, always, guys, check out the exchange shop, and we'll go through these really quickly together, and I'll tell y'all what to buy. But you can check out the bulk purchases. Unfortunately, I already bought a lot of this stuff, but use this button a lot in case you want to, you know, save yourself a bunch of clicks. In the beginning, you may not have enough gold, but later on, you will be buying out most of the stuff in the shop, guys, that costs gold, okay? As you can see here, I have like 180 tickets that I showed y'all earlier. So gold, as you get to the late game, is not a bottleneck, but as a new player, it will be very scarce. So At the start, you may not be able to buy everything, but start getting in the habit. Once you see your gold start to accumulate and you have a lot of it, you can start to buy out this entire first shop and under the consumables. You get the XP, you get the rare souls, very good. And then you get all of these, upgrades, boss, Stonehenge compass tickets, all of that stuff. This is where I was talking about the daily tickets for your XP and gold too, okay? Next up, guys, you have the raid section. Always get the skill pages when you can. And this is why you want to be doing your boss raids. You get stuff to craft legendary gear. You get like the refining stones, more boss Stonehenge tickets, and even some summons here too. So this is why I want y'all to do your boss raids on daily. For the guild, make sure you're in a guild. You get some summons, you get some souls, you get some skill pages, XP books. You guys getting the trend. Make sure you're checking this out and set the stuff that you want to buy on a daily with the bulk purchase to make things a lot easier. Here's the PvP section. This is why I told y'all to do this as well. A lot of great stuff here. Reroll stuff for your gear, more skill pages, pet summon tickets, and rare souls, which I'll talk about here right now. The souls, guys, are very good. You can actually get selectors here, and this is one tip and trick I want to tell y'all about. If you look at the mileage section, which is, even as a free-to-play, you will be getting mileage every time you summon. You'll see things like the character selection ticket, which is awesome. This is a selector. You get any character in the game with this. No kidding. However, this costs 4,000, which is actually a crap ton. So instead, one trick you guys can do on a once-a-month basis is buy out the rare souls instead. If you can see here, 160 for 10, or sorry, 160 per one. Up to 10, 1,600 guys will get you rare souls. If you look here, this costs us 20, right? So for some quick math, we can actually get a discount, 3,200 if I'm doing the math right. I think I am. You get a discount on getting a selector through the souls by converting your mileage, all right? A little confusing at first, but essentially we're just converting materials to get a cheaper character selector. Now, if you are Giga Whaling, obviously you can buy both the mileage and the souls, but that is one tidbit because you will be getting a lot of currency and mileage summons, guys, and so you eventually will be getting your selectors. So just keep that in mind, and then here's the event exchange shop. You get a lot of stuff in here in terms of summons. Just check it out. Make sure your events do as far as possible you can and do your daily sweeps for it so you can buy at all the shop goodies. All right, last but not least, I do want to leave you all with one last thing, and that is the specialties and trainings. I wasn't sure if we had time to cover it, but I do want to give you all some quick tips on this as well. In terms of specialties, this is just straight up, stats for your character. So I talked about what kind of character stats you need for your front row knights. Go for things like HP, defense. If they have HP scaling skills, make sure you have a lot of HP for them. For units that want attack, crit damage, these are going to be your best bets for your mages, your rangers, even your damaging knights. But try to always go for percentages, and then make sure if it's something like range attack, make sure that's for a ranger. If it's something like magic attack, make sure that's something only for mage. But always try to go for the universal ones that have percentages. Crit damage and attack are just safe bets, and you'll figure out more later. Now, one tip I want to leave y'all with for specialties is let's just pick a random character that I've never built. Instead of, you know what? Here, I'll just show y'all here. One tip I want to tell y'all is just rolling. In terms of rolling specialties, guys, when you roll this stuff, it's actually usually better to just roll a new set. Because if I lock, right? Let's roll for a bit. Let's say I get this for a knight. This is an almost perfect roll. If I lock this, you can see here, it gets 4 times more expensive. And then if I want to lock 2 stats, it gets, exponentially more expensive. So what I was going to say is in the beginning, when you have low amounts of mystic stones, one tip and trick you can use is just take a random character and just roll until you get a decent start, right? So if I just roll here, I'm just throwing in stuff until we get something, that double crit damage one was actually okay. But eventually you'll see something that's kind of nice. Let's say this one's okay. We have double crit damage here. Just to start us off, you will obviously fish for something much better than that. But as soon as you find something that is decent, this is a lot better than starting to lock, because once you're starting to lock 16 at a time, you're going to run out of these stones so fast as a newer player. So try to utilize this mechanic. It's obviously a lot of it is based on luck, but this will typically give you more bang for your buck by rolling one at a time. Like this perfect roll for a knight, we will transfer this trait and it will cost a little bit of crystals, but trust me, this is worth it. And we just transfer this onto our knight. So this is one just secret tip that you guys can use to roll specialties. All right, guys, last but not least, let's talk about training. And even though this is mode you won't sink your teeth until way later, I do want to talk about it real quick. It just gives a lot of stats, and some of the stats are account wide. I believe most of them are, except for like the unique skills. So if you can see here, your characters will also get buffs to their damage, their abilities. This will depend on the character you're upgrading, but in general you will get a lot of stats, and these will affect your entire account. So this will apply to all characters, so you get boosts for all characters depending on what you upgrade. The reason I want to talk about this now, though, is you don't want to invest into characters that you're not sure you're going to use later on. Even though the stats are universal, you really want to start getting into the end game training, and so you want to invest into characters you're really going to like. And the bottlenecks for resources, it costs like the gold soul tickets or gold soul crystals, as well as those element stones that I showed you earlier that are very rare to come by. So be very careful investing into these and try to only invest into characters you know that are good or characters you really like and plan to use for a long time. Okay, last few things. Lightning round. Let's go and talk about the shop real quick. I have the shop hidden just because, you know, this is a YouTube video, and a lot of times the shops can get real spicy, guys, in terms of fan service. But you want to be buying some food stuff here. You can get some friendship items as well. Friendship just gives your characters more stats and more lore dialogues and secret cutscenes for those of you that like stuff like that. But just check the shop. In the beginning, you want to buy some of these food buffs because food is very important, guys. So run your steak sets, run your chicken stew whenever you're progressing, as you want to make sure these are always on. This is something a lot of new players miss as well. Have these 1 hour buff durations, and then you'll also have your through the boss raid that I showed y'all earlier. You also get these dragon roars. These might be a little more rare than food in the beginning, but later as you get in the game, you'll have infinite amount of these if you want. These also give insane stat buffs. Just keep in mind, you may not have a lot of these, so be careful at the start of the game, but later on you'll have infinite amounts of dragon roars that you want. So have all the food buffs ready, and let me just show you guys when it's not an event time. You want to run 1 steak set, 1 dragon roar, 1 chicken stew, and 1 fried eggs. And also, if you can't find those in the shop that I just showed you, the tavern shop, you also can craft these in the general section. So you guys can see here, chicken stew and fried eggs, and that leads us into the next section. Let's move to the town. If you don't know where to get these eggs, guys, there is a little mini game in the town. I say mini game, but it's kind of just like, you want to just go in here and kill the chickens. I'm not kidding. It'll drop. Don't worry. It'll auto pick up as you move through. There's one reason to use the town, okay? There is an NPC here, guys, on the left that you can get some friendship items for. Don't ever buy the ones with crystals. This is bait, but you could buy these with gold if you want to upgrade your units for better stats, for more dialogue options, things like that. Now, next up and last, this is finally last but not least, we talk about the bases, and this is where I talked about the Labyrinth. This is where you're going to upgrade your Labyrinth, and that'll give you stats. This is the managed base for Rhea, and then you have your Blacksmith. So make sure you check out the town and you upgrade this after doing your Labyrinth. You'll start getting the materials, and these, as you can see, give me stat boosts, or they'll give me XP gain. So this is not a lot, but it does add up. So you want to make sure you're on top of this and upgrade things where you can. A lot of this is like horizontal progression that'll help you progress through the main story, but try to get all the stat boosts and things like that. So the Blacksmith and the Rhea, and then last but not least, guys, I mentioned this earlier, but things like Chaos Cube, these will give stats, and you'll just disenchant your gear, salvage your gear, you'll get these materials, and then additionally your relics, right? You get these powders, you just upgrade these. Just try to keep an even split, guys. You can see here that I'm upgrading this one more because it does give me crit damage and HP, which is where I'm pushing. But in general, to start, just upgrade them evenly and you'll be good to go. One other thing is the growth section right here, guys. As a new player, ignore the boss attack and go all for attack, and then if you need help, you can go defense and HP. So there's gonna be some certain wall stages where you want to bring in, you know, multiple healers, multiple tanks, and you can even stack and reset this with a little bit of crystals to get more protection and HP. But just for general progression, put it all into attack and the extras into defense, and then the extras into HP last but not least. Later on, you'll get boss attack, but in the beginning, this is the least important, okay? So progressing through walls, make sure in team compositions, you can redo your growths to get more tankiness. So if you find yourself dying, bursted down by bosses, you either need more levels or you need to bring like triple healers, double knights, things like that, guys. Experiment, and that'll be the way you can progress through those certain tough stages. All right, I know there's so much we talked about. I need to wrap things up here, otherwise it's going to be completely overwhelming, but hopefully this helps y'all out, and I'll have more specific guides to come. So thank you so much as always for tuning in. I love this game, and I hope you guys do as well, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.